So what if you could prove that God exists just by using your own mind? No ancient texts, no looking up at the stars, just pure, simple logic. Well, that is the absolutely audacious claim made by René Descartes. His argument, which we call the ontological argument, is one of the most fascinating and, controversial in the entire history of philosophy. So let's break down how he pulls this off. Think about how we normally talk about something existing. A chair exists, a unicorn doesn't. Existence feels like, well, an optional feature. But this is right where Descartes just flips the whole table. He wants us to imagine a concept where existence isn't optional at all. It's actually a built-in, non-negotiable part of the definition itself. Okay, so to even get our heads around how existence could be necessary, we first have to understand a really key concept for Descartes, something he calls immutable natures. Just think of these as permanent, unchangeable truths about ideas, truths that our minds don't invent, we just discover them. Like Descartes himself says, some ideas have a certain determinate nature, which is immutable and eternal, and not framed by me. It's kind of like this. Your mind doesn't create the rules of math, right? You just recognize them. Those rules have a reality all their own, completely independent of whether you're thinking about them or not. And to make this idea super concrete, Descartes uses a simple, but honestly a brilliant example, a triangle. So when you think of a triangle, certain truths just come along for the ride. It has to have 3 sides, and its angles have to add up to 180 degrees. These properties are completely inseparable from the very idea of a triangle. And here's the kicker. This is all true even if no perfect triangle has ever existed in the physical world. The idea itself has a true and unchangeable nature. All right, so we've established this principle. An idea can have a necessary, unchangeable nature. With that in place, Descartes takes this exact same logic and applies it to a much, much bigger idea that he finds in his mind, the idea of God as a perfect being. Now, this is Descartes' specific definition, and it is absolutely crucial. He defines God not just as, powerful, but as a supremely perfect being. What that means is the very essence of this being must include every single possible perfection. If you can think of a perfection, then by definition, it's got to be part of God's nature. And this brings us to the most important step. This is the gear that drives the whole logical machine. Descartes makes a claim that is both incredibly simple and incredibly profound. He considers existence itself to be a perfection. Okay, here's how the logic just locks into place. Step 1. God is, by definition, a supremely perfect being. Got it. Step 2. This means it's logically impossible for a being like that to lack any perfection. Makes sense. And now, here's the knockout punch in step 3. Descartes claims that existence itself is a perfection. I mean, think about it. Isn't it better to exist than not to? Descartes uses this really powerful analogy to just hammer the point home. You can't think of a mountain without, at the same time, thinking of a valley. The two ideas are inseparable. In the exact same way, he argues, you cannot possibly conceive of a supremely perfect being that lacks the perfection of existence. To even think of God is to think of a being that necessarily exists. So all the pieces are now on the board. This all leads to a really startling, and at least for Descartes, and completely inevitable conclusion. If you accept his premises, that God is perfect and that existence is a perfection, then the final step becomes logically inescapable. The argument concludes that God's existence isn't just possible or even probable, but that it's logically necessary. His existence follows from his essence, just like having 3 sides follows from the essence of a triangle. And this is so important to understand. This is the core of what's called an a priori argument. It doesn't rely on observing the world at all. Descartes isn't saying, hey, look at the universe, it must have a creator. Nope. He's saying, just analyze the idea of a perfect being, and you will see that existence is already built into the very concept. It all just boils down to this one single powerful idea. For Descartes, suggesting a perfect being might not exist is a fundamental logical contradiction. It's as nonsensical as talking about a 4-sided triangle. It's an elegant argument from pure reason that philosophers are still debating, and it leaves us with a really profound question. Can logic alone truly define what is real?